Good afternoon and welcome to Live at the Waterhole, everyone. My name is Amy and I will be with you for the show today. Now we are starting off here at Old Donyo Lodge in Kenya with a beautiful giraffe. And there are some clouds quickly in the background as well. Now remember everyone that this is of course a live and interactive show, so please do make sure that through your questions to us, or even if you just want to say hello, I would love to hear from you. It's always wonderful to hear from the viewers, and let me know who is joining us all this afternoon. It is really good to be back here live at the Waterhole. I've been away for a little while and it's good to know I'll be here for the next few shows. And always nice to catch up with what's been happening across the different African locations. And it looks like there's some sort of a change in weather happening here in Kenya, just with these very fast moving cumulus clouds, low level clouds. Maybe some rain is on the way. Now that sounded very much like an elephant. And there we go. I think this is the culprit of moving that giraffe off a little bit. What a magnificent animal. And what a great start to the show this afternoon. Oh, I see another one on its way. Oh, this is just wonderful. There's a third as well, all coming to say hello to us, and a fourth. Well, if they all decide to drink here at the same time, this is going to be what one would refer to as a Kodak moment. Absolutely beautiful. Mercedes, you say, welcome back, Amy. Greetings, Wild Earth crew, chatters, happy Thursday. Thanks so much, Mercedes. It's so good to be back here with you all. I'm so excited, as I said, for the next few days to be with you on the show. And already we're off to a wonderful start. Indeed, Darcy Miller, the one that was on screen first with those very long tusks, is known as 1 ton. I'm not sure of the other names, if these bulls also have names, but that particular one with those very impressive tusks is known as 1 ton. Lenny, wonderful to hear from you. You say good to hear from you, Amy, and you are watching from Phoenix in Arizona, which is in the United States. So, very warm welcome to you, Lenny. Thanks for saying hello. And it looks like these boys are just here for a very short play. I'm a bit surprised, to be honest. Usually they do stick around for quite a while to drink, but today on a mission, it looks like. I'm not sure what their plans are. Maybe the weather has them a little bit sort of on edge, or maybe they just want to keep moving. They have an idea of where they want to head to today. There's also quite a bit of bird life that visits this waterhole as well, and it's always nice sometimes to zoom in and just check if there's anything in particular that we can spot. There's a few doves there at the moment. But we've seen some amazing things at this waterhole in terms of smaller creatures. We've had little cameos from ground squirrels, we've had tortoises, a Kenyan rockagam. Oh, that sounded like exhale of an elephant. Maybe another one has popped back, or maybe one has arrived. There we go, Darcy Miller, 1 ton in all his glory, has come back. Very interesting that he arrived first, the others came, they've moved off, and now he's come back. I'm not sure. Such fascinating dynamics. Maybe he just wanted some peace and quiet to be on his own here at the waterhole and let the others move off before he came for his drink. Or dust bathe, should I say. Look how he used his foot there. That was very cool. Almost to scoop the sand into the hollow of his trunk to throw onto his back. Looks like we have lost that feed at Old Donyo, everyone. So we have come across here to Vic Falls Safari Lodge in Zimbabwe, where there are some yellow-billed storks as well as marabou storks in the background around the waterhole at the moment. And the tail of a very large crocodile I can see there as well. We are here at Vic Falls, everyone, and there's quite a bit going on. A few different species of animals making an appearance. Some marabou storks around in the background there, and there are some yellow-billed storks closer by, as well as a sacred ibis mixed in somewhere in between there as well, and some impalas right near us here. I think there are one or two vultures under the trees. So a mixed bag here today around this waterhole. But what a beautiful spot right in the heart of Victoria Falls. And of course, there is a crocodile as well that has sort of put half its body behind a bush, but we can see its tail there sticking out, a Nile crocodile with a yellow-billed stork that is very brave. The croc actually just moved. It actually look like a little flock of guinea fowl there now, just on our right of the screen. A lot happening here. This is beautiful. And this is a very interesting picture we have here with the marabou stork in comparison to the size of a yellow-billed stork. It just shows how huge they are. Standing about 1.5 meters high. I think that's about 5 feet or so. And it's drinking here at the moment. Darcy, you say you've been reading some interesting research papers on marabou storks. Well, that is fascinating. They are fascinating birds. I think learning more about them is a constant thing, and it's a bird that is, so fascinating in so many ways. They do scavenge, often associated with vultures in similar scenes, marabou storks. But there's still so much that we can learn about their sort of breeding habits and certain distribution factors. Oh wow, those look like some pelicans. That is also very cool. But Darcy, if you have anything that you'd like to share about the marabou storks that you've learned through what you've read, please do let me know. Always keen to learn more and share that with the viewers. Now, we get 2 species of pelicans that are possibly seen within southern Africa, which is the pink-backed and the great white pelican. Very tricky to tell them apart. I'm going to give myself a bit more time to see if we can see any defining features here. But those are the 2 possibilities. Actually have quite a similar beak structure to that of the marabou stork, very sort of long and pointy. Just at first glance, but of course the pelicans being able to sort of the bottom half of their sort of jaw, there's a bit of skin by their necks that can expand as well. We've all seen pictures of pelicans with sort of holding fish or whatever within their beaks. There we go. It's actually just flapping that sort of loose yellowy skin by its throat there. Alright, well, speaking of pelicans, let's have a look at a clip of one right here at this waterhole. Well, that was very cool. A lot more out in the open, that particular individual. These might move a little bit more into the clearing. Now, that particular one looked like it had quite a grey, almost pinkish bill and body all over, and that makes me think that that individual in the video clip was a pink-backed pelican. The ones that have a bit more yellow around their bills are usually the white-backed. Not the white-backed, the great white pelican. But in breeding plumage, the pink-backed bill does also turn yellow. So it's all these factors to consider, but in that clip that did look like a pink-backed pelican, completely sort of no yellow showing whatsoever. So fascinating to see them here, and a first for me on the Waterhole show, personally. So a great addition to my bird list for the Waterhole. Now it is coming up to 1 p.m. in the afternoon Central African time. And here at Vic Falls, they do a feeding session at 1 p.m. for vultures, as well as I suppose the marabou storks also benefit from this, where the lodge puts out leftover sort of scraps of meat and bones. And that is all to do with conserving vultures and giving them a safe food supply. So that will be happening now in about 6 minutes. And that will be very cool if we do manage to stay here for that sort of feeding frenzy that happens at 1 p.m. Now, of course, for those viewers who may not be aware, we don't usually feed animals out here in the wild. That is not the done thing, and in fact, it's something we fervently are against in most circumstances. But at Vic Falls, they have a conservation project that is running, and because vultures are just so incredibly endangered all over the world, and a lot of that is to do with unsafe food supplies, them being poached or killed with poisoning of their food, and so this is a way to make sure that they have a safe food supply that won't harm them in any way, and also to keep them healthy with enough for them to keep going and help increase population. So that is why that is done here at this particular lodge. That looked like a hippo there, sticking up its head in between for a brief minute. Unless it was a croc's head, I did just see it very, like, sort of catch the corner of my eye. Oh, no, it was a crocodile. I can see it moving now. Half its back was out the water just in front of that yellow bullstalk near the back of the waterhole. There you can see the top of its back showing. Oh, what a wonderful little time spent here at Vic Falls, everyone. I'm sure we'll be back, but for now, let's head over to Tembe with an elephant. Oh, not just a elephant, but two elephants here. This is one of my favorite Africam locations that we have. I just always think it's such a beautiful scene looking out over this waterhole. It's fascinating that we have basically arrived in winter here in South Africa. I've definitely felt the temperatures change. It's actually one of my favorite times of the year. But here at Tembe, these elephants are still putting some mud on themselves, sand cooling down. So I think it's still quite warm there in northern KwaZulu-Natal, Maputo land. One of the wonderful things about this location as well is all the birds. I can hear southern boo-boo calling. It is quite windy. Just have a look at the tree, even the surface of the water. And the last time I was here with Live at the Waterhole, there was a lot of green algae on this water, almost completely covered entirely. So I'm glad to see that oh, there's a little elephant moving in the background, but I'm glad to see that algae has gone away. Maybe some fresh rains arrived. Sean Atkinson, you say, what a beautiful setting, like a David Shepherd painting. It is a gorgeous setting, isn't it? Like I said, there's something very special about this spot with Africam here at Tembe. Just the way it's sort of open and quite far away from the water in some way, so we get a very big scene, a vast scene. And then the greenery is also really pretty. You can see that elephant on the left just resting his trunk on his tusk. Getting a chance to have that weight carried by his tusk rather than his face. Gavin, you want to know if some algae is more dangerous than other kinds of algae? Yes, absolutely. So some algae is completely harmless. It's just sort of a greeny type of plant-like growth that happens, and it doesn't really have any harmful effects. But then, yes, of course, there are harmful algae that can grow, and that can be extremely toxic, specifically for human consumption, but even for animals. The one out here that would be most relevant is actually known as blue-green algae, but it can appear as sort of a rusty red color. Varies in color, even though it's called blue-green algae, scientifically known as cyanobacteria, and that actually is toxic and harmful, and animals won't drink or eat. Should I say, they won't really eat it, but if it, and of course they might get it accidentally. But I've seen elephants avoid water where that specific algae is present. And then if we look at marine life, you get things like red tides that are often warned against eating any shellfish from areas where there are red tides, and that is also toxic and harmful to humans. So there's definitely certain algae that aren't harmful, and there are ones that are. And it is quite a complex sort of thing to research and understand with how all those things work. But there's basically, particularly with cyanobacteria, what's that is actually stopping the oxygen from getting into the water, basically. And so at the end of the day, any life inside the water is going to eventually die if it's there for too long, because the oxygen is depleted and it can't renew itself, which is one of the most dangerous things for the actual life within a waterhole. And it's interesting for me, it always amazes me how algae can sort of bloom and grow, as they call it, algae blooms, and sort of multiply in number almost, it seems like, overnight sometimes. But as soon as there's sort of an influx of fresh water, good rains, or however different reserves manage that algae can disappear. So it's a fascinating thing, and something I'd also actually want to read up more and more about. Speaking of research and things like that, is algae blooms, and sort of to get a definite cause is also tricky, but it usually happens with very stagnant water, as the water depletes and gets smaller and smaller. So algae tends to find itself being able to grow better in those areas. But there are some more elephants arriving here, which is just so wonderful, both on this side and on the far side of the waterhole. Lady Macbeth, you say the waterhole was invaded by alien plant species, not by algae. Okay, that would probably be water hyacinth then, and that, because it's an invasive plant, would have been removed. I just remember how green this all was on the water, but if it was hyacinth, often they will remove that in part of the reserve management, because it is an invasive plant, which is fantastic. But there have been other waterholes that we've seen with particularly large algae blooms. And sometimes there's even a mixture. You've got invasive plant, and then as well as things like algae that are covering the surface of the water. And then you also have things like water lilies, which are not invasive and very much part of the ecosystem. And you've got things like African jacana, for example, that really enjoy using those lily pads. And it's an important part of a waterhole. Mindy, that is a good question. You want to know, how does the algae just disappear? It is remarkable how it can happen, but it has a lot to do with the water. For example, if water started to flow, if there was an increase in water, for example, rain, that then dilutes the level of carbon dioxide within the water, so that basically what happens is that the algae has no more sort of nutrients that it's looking for to keep growing, so it can't survive, and then it dies, as it were, and disappears. So that's how it can happen, especially if there's a big rain overnight, or if a stagnant pool in a river starts to flow again, that algae will then disappear, because one of the major things that algae needs is a lot of carbon dioxide rich water, which is forms often in very stagnant pools. And as soon as that is increased with oxygen, which means more water, or however that may be, most commonly, it's because of rain that falls and increases the oxygen content in the water, which means that the algae can no longer survive. But also, if there's not a lot of sunlight, or if it's very bright light, that can also mean that less algae forms. So it's a fascinating thing, and I'm always amazed by the fact that it can disappear so quickly. Diane, hello. You just tuned in and was delighted to hear your voice, Amy. I wonder what those two Ellies were talking about before the third one joined them. Well, now there's 6 of them here. So I'm not sure. I always wonder what they're chatting about, Diane. This one on the right has very tattered ears. You can just see how torn they've gotten a lot smaller in size because of all the tears. But it's wonderful to see so many elephants here at Tembe. You can actually see this bull on the left, as well as the bull under the tree on the far side, seem to be doing some resting. And some of the others are still throwing sand on themselves. Proudly SA, you say you've always wondered about the brain of an elephant. They have big brains. That's the reason why they are so intelligent. So definitely brain size has an impact if we think of the size of a brain relative to the animal it belongs to. Generally, the larger the brain, the more intelligent the animal, and more capable of sort of emotional intelligence as well, which is one of the big things that we notice with more of the charismatic animals that we sort of feel a connection to. For example, elephants, leopards, even rhino, hippos, sort of animal that we lions even, for example. And so it is, I mean, the brain of an elephant. I think there's so much research that has been, but also that can still be done. There's so much that we don't know in terms of their language, so to speak, and how their brains work, how their memory works, how that matriarch is able to recall so much, so many years, emotional intelligence level. And the Proudly SA, I do think that there is a connection to the brain size, but humans don't necessarily have the largest brain in comparison to something like an elephant. But of course, our intelligence level and what we've been able to accomplish as humans is far greater, relatively. So it doesn't always infer that. However, with the elephant, they're definitely one of the most intelligent animals that we can see out here. But then I also think for this and how intelligent they are, how can work things and how they manage to, just have that high intelligence level even with their social structure and remembering things and picking up patterns, to communicate and all their different vocations. So they don't have the largest brain in comparison to an elephant, for example. So it's an interesting thing to look into correlation brain intelligence level, but I think generally you could say, the larger the brain, intelligent the species, but that's not always necessarily true. But I do think it does contribute to how intelligent elephants are. And of course, they need the brain to be able to function such a massive body as well. We must remember that how much needs to be coordinated and managed. And so that brain needs to be big enough to manage everything that's going on in this humongous beast of an animal. Well, we have had a wonderful time here at Tembe Elephant Park with these Ellies, everyone. But why don't we head back up to Kenya to see what's happening at El Doño? Well, this is great to go from one group of Ellies to another. And Mr. One Ton, the elephant on the left, and a friend are here having a drink at the waterhole. You can see how much more overcast it has become in the last hour of the show, since starting here and then coming back now. Those clouds were moving incredibly fast, and there was still quite a bit of blue sky around, but now you can see it's basically become completely overcast weather. I do see some starlings have been flying around, and it does look like a superb starling. Tadiwa is directing me today, and that is her favorite bird. So there you go. Sandy, hello. You asking if the indentation on his head is from age? So yes, Sandy, if we look at the individual on the left compared to the one on the right, I mean, there are some very clear differences. Firstly, the tusks, of course. Generally, an elephant's tusks really only start extending and getting very thick and long when they are over the age of about 45, 50 years. And that is once his last set of teeth have arrived, and that calcium production then gets pushed into the tusks and they can grow significantly. Now, he has just moved off screen, but you could see how much more sunken in his forehead was in comparison to the individuals that are arriving now, and that does come with age. It's sort of the size of the head. I think there's a lot to do with muscles and also weight of the skull that's pulling the skin, and so those indents become larger and larger. The calcium growth on the forehead gets bigger, and so we've got, I mean, if you look even on this one on the right, he's got shorter tusks, but they are much thicker than the other two, and his temples, or sort of above the eye, they are a lot more sunken in, which comes with age. The skin almost starts to collapse into those indents, which become very prominent as the elephants get older. And of course, you know, the length of the tusk is a lot to do with genetics. So the one on the elephant on the right, furthest right, he doesn't have as long tusks as one ton. He may even be older, but his genetics haven't been so that he'll have what we refer to as a tusker length of tusk, but they are very thick and he is very large. So, you know, I'm not sure if there is history on all the individual elephants in the area of the Old Donyo, but it's impossible to know other than knowing exactly when an elephant was born and then seeing them live their life to be able to know exact ages of elephants. It's a bit of a educated guessing game. But if you just base it on tusk length, then of course one further back with those very impressive tusks would be the oldest, but that's not always the case. We often look at the thickness of the tusk as well, to help tell us if an elephant is older. Then of course his general body size, and then of course, like Sandy was asking, that those sunken in almost side of the head, and that you can see very clearly on the individual at the back right here. This elephant closest to us doing a very similar thing to the ones that we saw at Tembe, except this one's actually wrapped its trunk around its tusk, with the tusk going through the middle of the wrapped around trunk. Does seem like the elephants decided to come back. We saw them arrive earlier and then just move off immediately. But it seems that the boys have decided to come back and spend some time here at this waterhole, which I'm very happy about. Giraffe, you want to know, will this waterhole be artificially filled? Yes, so they will top it up. I think already it's actually gone down quite significantly, and now there's only just a little pool at the back that will be topped up. With the number of animals that do drink, and especially such large groups of these bulls that come and have, they could drink 50 to 100 liters at one time, 30 to 2. Proudly SA, that is a great question. And it is something that even I've wondered here, particularly at Old Doniel, with this Africam location, how come we don't sort of see herds here of elephants like we do in Southern Africa, or particularly locations like Jamala or Tal, where we often see big families of elephants, even at Juma, coming down to drink. And here I've only ever seen bulls coming to drink. And I think it totally depends on the way the matriarch leads the herds. Maybe because this particular waterhole is so well favored by the large bulls that matriarchs prefer to keep their herds away from this particular area, and they rather go to other water or sources of water that will be around. Maybe it's close by, maybe it's further away. I'm not sure, but that could be a reason why we don't see the herds coming here. They've chosen other areas to rather get their water from, and that's down to the matriarch who leads them. We have to remember as well that in East Africa, their sort of cycle of water is different to us in terms, or us meaning myself, based in South Africa, with the rainy season happening sort of twice a year, with a shorter season and a longer season, a lot more rain falling, and therefore lots of water being around. So they wouldn't necessarily be confined to one small area. There would be a lot of water available for them within the greater sort of East African area, whether that's the the greater Serengeti or the Masai Mara, or wherever they would find themselves. And all of a sudden decided to move off. Clearly have finished here with the water they needed, and a little bit of dust bathing as well that they've done. Looks like we have lost that feed from Kenya, but we have popped over all the way down south to Namibia at the wonderful Okakuyo. It's lovely to visit this spot again. It's always such a beautiful scene when you arrive here after not seeing it for a while. And I was going to say it was looking quite quiet, but in the background there, it does look like there is some movement of animals. Well, there is a very special arrival here at Okakuyo, everyone. Wow, I cannot tell you when last I've seen an elephant here myself. I think it must have been early December last year. This is very cool and clearly a elephant-themed day today. Well, we are being treated here, everyone at Okakuyo, with an elephant that's decided to come for a drink. Looks like just one at this point, but I'm hoping that maybe some more will arrive soon. And this is such a treat. I was saying earlier that I don't think I've seen an elephant at Okakuyo since December last year, and beginning of December last year. Like a bull indeed. So I'm hoping that maybe he's ahead of a whole herd of eddies that are on their way. Well, this is just such a special sighting to have here at Okakuyo, everyone. Wow, 4 elephant bulls. Sandy, you want to know at what time of the year do we get the most precipitation to fill the water holes? In a place like Okakuyo, not at really no time of the year do we get much precipitation, but summer would be the time if there was going to be any rain when that. Lady Macbeth, I am just as excited. At first we just had some elephant bulls and I thought maybe that was a sign of a herd that was on the way. If we're lucky, we'll see them come all the way into the water. Diane, their tusks are quite small. It could be an age thing. The bulls on the left, they are quite small. But some of the larger ones I did see were also a bit shorter. They could have broken off. And they just haven't been able to grow to a long length anymore. But it also has genetics also have a role to play. So not every elephant group or bull or cow will, some of them won't even have any tusks, some of them will have very small tusks, thin tusks. So it all just depends, Diane, if, depending on the genes, and then if they've broken off over time as well, possibly. They might do quite a bit of digging to find roots and bulbs and things, especially in a much drier habitat like Etosha National Park. But wow, just look at the scene with these elephants here, everyone. This is fantastic. I just can't believe how many elephants are here. This is incredible. I don't know when last you all have had an elephant sighting in Okukuyo, but to see so many here, so many little ones as well in between. I'm going to try and see if I can count them, if we can have a rough idea of exactly how many individuals are here at the moment. So I think there are about 60 Ellies here. There was a whole little group that moved off to the left. So I would say anywhere between 50 to 70. More than 50, but I don't think more than 70 elephants that are here at the moment, which is just amazing. Mindy, you say, wow. There's not really much more to say than that. It really is amazing. This is so, so special. Danny, you'd like to know what the biggest elephant herd is that I've ever seen. I haven't really seen more than about 120 elephants at one time. I think the biggest herd, there was one time in the Addo Elephant National Park, which is in the Eastern Cape of South Africa, around a particular waterhole there. There was about 100 elephants over a period of about an hour that were at one time there were probably about 80 all at the water, and then another 20 or so surrounding the water. And then another very large elephant herd sighting I had was in the Kruger National Park, around sort of the central northern area of Mapani Camp. There's a waterhole there, very big open area, and we just had what felt like hundreds of elephants, but it was probably about 120 of them around us at one time, which was very, very cool. Mercedes and Sandy, I'm so glad that you are both enjoying the sighting as much as I am. Mercedes, you don't think that you've never seen so many Ellies at once. It is a really, really special sighting this. And Sandy, you love how many little elephants there are around. It is amazing how many there are. It's lovely to have an elephant pool party at Okakuyo for something different. You can see them all enjoying cooling down. I think they may have traveled quite a distance to get here. So I can just imagine how much they are loving being able to cool their entire bodies down in the water. Well, it looks like it is time to move off already for these elephants, but just have a look at how they're walking. Big one, small one. Lots and lots of babies in between here. Yeah, Ray, absolutely, because there's clearly been communication here that it's time to go, and they must follow. So, and it has to do with this sort of rumbles or maybe even infrasound, which is the sound that the human ear can't pick up. But if there's research that can be done to see if it's the same type of noise given around a waterhole when the matriarch says let's go, then that becomes, that's the sound or the certain frequency that they communicate at when they say it's time to go. Then maybe if they're communicating about when it's time to, I don't know, walk or head to the water, then there'll be a different frequency used, Ray, possibly. So that's the sort of research that I think is so fascinating, to find if we can actually work out an elephant's language, how they use different sounds and noises to communicate different things. And if we can pick up a pattern in that, then we could actually perhaps work out elephant communication even more. Well, now that we have finished off with this elephant sighting and they are moving away, let's head back over to Tembe to see what's happening over there. Well, these two elephants are also having a drink. Now, we were talking about the tusks of those elephants that were at Okakuya and how much shorter they are. And clearly you can see here that these elephants' tusks are much more impressive and more prominent. And that does have a lot to do with the genetics. And it is something that actually is an important part of trying to get back the tusk genes, not in reserves in South Africa, but throughout Africa in general, because of the ivory trade and the poaching of elephants that happened very heavily within the 20th and 19th centuries. You know, it means that the elephants with the best tusks were taken out of the gene pool. and we were left with weaker genes being passed on. So it's important with elephants like what we're looking at here that we can get tusk genes back into the populations of elephants that we do have, so we can get more and more elephants with beautiful tusks again, which would be wonderful. I know that they are also trying to do that within the Addo Elephant National Park in South Africa, trying to vary the gene pool as well. Lovely to see a few other animals are around this waterhole as well. We peeked at some impala and warthog that were also grazing. Diane, you say it must be harder to relocate females because of their family connections. Do they just move bulls? Yes, so most of the time it is bulls that are darted and then relocated into different reserves, and their genetics then, of course, the plan is to pass that on throughout the herds. If they were to want to move a herd or a female, they would need to move the entire herd. It would just be cruel to relocate a random female elephant. So because of the costs involved with relocation, is generally, if they are going to do that, they would choose to do that with individual bull elephants. And there are the impalas and warthogs that I was speaking about. Lovely to see that they've also made an appearance and are busy grazing. And I cannot believe that 2 hours can go so quickly. We've had such a full show today with so many amazing animals, particularly a lot of ellies, but no one is complaining about that. It has been fantastic. Puma, you say thank you for all the lovely sightings today. It really has been fantastic. And thank you so much for everyone for joining us and sharing live at the waterhole with me today, and to everyone who sent through comments and questions as well. Appreciate it. There's always something new to learn and discuss, and hopefully you've all enjoyed the show this afternoon. I will be back with you all tomorrow, which is fantastic. So I'm looking forward to another day at the waterhole, and make sure that you stay tuned to live at the to Wild Earth, where we will have On Safari coming up next, followed by the live sunset drive, which you are all more than welcome to join us for. So from myself and the team, thank you so much once again for joining us here at Live at the Waterhole, and I hope that I will be back with you all, or should I say you will be back with me tomorrow as we once again see what is going to come down and visit us. I'll catch you all then.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the tent on a nice warm afternoon here in May. My name is Steve. I'm joined by Paul on camera, and this is On Safari.